Hi guys, it's Olivia here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you a video on my top 10 book characters who are passionate and who have a hobby that they really love and it really drives them throughout the book. I decided to do this video because I love characters who are passionate, it inspires me to be more passionate about my hobbies. But before we get started, a quick little promotion thing. This video is brought to you by myself. I've got a new Redbubble and Society 6 shop which is up, and I've made this Raven cycle design which says the head is too wise, the heart is all fire, and that's the quote that drove me to make this video about being passionate. This is a tote bag with that design, but it comes on many different things like phone cases, like throw pillows, like mugs, so much. So check out either my Redbubble or Society 6, different designs and different products on each one. Definitely check it out, it's worth it. Okay, let's get right down to the books because we've got 10 books to fly through here, no time to waste. The first book with a passionate character is going to be Circe by Madeline Miller. Circe is about the Greek goddess Circe, and it's basically just following her life story and seeing all the people that she comes across and all the shenanigans she gets involved in. It's a retelling, and I just thought this book was so good. I absolutely loved it. But Circe is someone who has witchcraft and she is magic, and she's really passionate about this magic. She gets exiled to an island, but while she's on that island she keeps growing herbs, she keeps perfecting her art, and her magic is with her at all times. And even though she's not always happy, her magic kind of keeps her safe, keeps her secure, and keeps her unique. So I would say that she's quite passionate about her magic, and I felt like this was a good place to start. The next character that's really passionate about what they have has to be Molly in The Upside of Unrequited. I recently read this one. I read it in one sitting because I absolutely loved it that much. It's about Molly who is just struggling to fall in love and get a boyfriend. She doesn't understand how everybody seems to do it but her, and this is just her story of, you know, the upside to being unrequited and her trying to get her first boyfriend. It sounds a bit when I tell it like that. It's also got amazing LGBT plus rep, and it's just so fun and such a light-hearted contemporary. Molly is very artsy, she's very creative, and she makes like those creative things that you find on Etsy or Pinterest, all those little trinkets or decorations, and throughout the book she's going through a lot of things, but when she is going through a hard time she ends up either baking or making one of her creative arts, and I just thought that was so fun to see her turning to her creativity as a place for her to think and relax, because that's what I end up doing as well. Then the next one I have to talk about I don't have a physical copy of, and that's Let's Talk About Love by Claire Can. This one is about an ace person of colour who is struggling with her relationships as she's asexual, and she doesn't know how to come out, she doesn't know how to tell people about it, and she doesn't know how to be in a relationship that won't become difficult because she's asexual. And I thought this one was really educational to me because I hadn't read a book with a main character who was asexual before. In fact, I don't think I'd read a book with an asexual character in it at all. So I definitely learned a lot through reading this book. I highly recommend it. It's really cutesy, fluffy, fun, contemporary, and she has a hobby which is interior design. I've never seen someone who's had a passion for interior design in a book before, so I really liked, you know, seeing how she would look at a room and see how she can mismatch things to make it look good and fill out the space, and she's kind of facing a career dilemma in this book, so you get to see her working through it. The next book I have for you, I also don't have my physical copy of it with me right now, and that is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ning, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Little Fires Everywhere is about this really rich town, and then this poor family moves into this rich town. They become good friends with one of the rich families, and lots of secrets get shared, and there's this huge court case about birth mother versus adopted mother, and lots of things happen which ends up with the rich family's house being burned down to the ground. That is not a spoiler. In the opening chapter you get to see that the house is burned down to the ground, and then the book rewinds so you get to see all the events that lead up to this taking place. However, as well as all of that going on, the poor family, not poor, but the family that don't have as much money as everybody else in this town but still happen to live there, is a mother-daughter duo, and the mother is called Mia, and Mia is a photographer, and in the book you really get to see bits of her doing her photography, and she is just so creative. I loved seeing how she sets up her photographs, how she really enjoys the whole editing process, the whole printing the film and letting it dry out, and how she has all these negatives and how she selects the main one. Like, I know nothing about photography really, but that just, it took me to another level to see her dedication and how she liked every process of the craft, and that just inspired me so much to get back to writing and editing and really enjoy it. The one that I have to tell you about is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This is a fantasy to do with fae, and the main character paints the fae prince, and fae aren't supposed to have expressions, but she sees sorrow in the fae prince and she paints sorrow onto his face. However, when that painting is revealed to the fae courts, all the fae see it as a weakness and his reputation is threatened, and he needs to take the artist with him to plead before the court to show that sorrow is not a weakness for him. Whew, what a synopsis, and I can't remember the main character's name. I'm so sorry, I'm so bad at that. It's gonna pop up on the screen somewhere, but she is an artist, she paints and she loves it. And one of the things about becoming a fae is that if you become a fae, you lose your creativity, you lose your emotions. So she just doesn't want to lose that. She really loves being creative, she loves painting, she loves working with all the bits and bobs that she can find. If she can't have an easel and, you know, good quality paints, she's going to get berry paste and paint with that. And I just loved seeing how resourceful she was when it came down to her art. And for the next 5 I'm going to do some less popular books because those are quite popular ones. So the first one I have to show you is Ecstasy by Mary Sharratt. I've talked about this one a lot lately on Instagram, so I don't want to linger on it too much, but Ecstasy follows Alma Mahler, who was a real historical figure, and this is historical fiction about her life. Alma was a musician, a composer back in Gustav Klimt's time, and she was just so passionate about her music, about creating. It was basically her life was her music. However, when she gets married to Gustav, he tells her to give up her music for him. And so in this one you get to see her kind of try and live without her music, and it was very interesting to see someone live without their passion, because that fire inside their soul is entirely dimmed, and day-to-day things just became so difficult for her, and that depression, it just grew. So it was very, I mean, this was her real life, so it's not something that you can speculate and think, oh, that could happen, but in real life it doesn't happen. No, this is based on a true story. So it was just really interesting to see what happens if you don't feed into your creativity, if you don't feed into your happiness and your hobbies, because hey, we need them to function and live. Then I'm going to talk about Underneath It All by Patricia Vaness. This one I rated 5 stars, and it's an indie novel. You just have to read it. It follows London, who is a reader and a writer, and he goes to a boarding school for rich kids. He's not a rich kid himself. He kind of gets caught up in a clique and in this lifestyle, and loads of problems happen. There's a mystery that needs to be unraveled, and basically he's in this manipulation game where he could really turn out to get the short end of the straw. He also falls in love with his friend's girlfriend, which is already a problem because she's already dating him, as well as it being his friend, who has a lot of power in the school. And Arya is someone who writes poetry and is also a writer and reader, which is why she gets along so well with London, and you do get to read some of her poetry in this book. Like, it's a fiction book, but you get to see some of her poems, and I just love that it was about readers and writers, because hey, I'm a reader and I'm a writer, and Arya's poetry really sets the tone for her mindset, because she has a lot of mental health problems and she has a lot of grief as her mother committed suicide, and she was the one to find her mother. So just a lot of emotions in this poetry, and a lot of emotions that need to be worked through in this story. Then the last physical one I have to show you is In Search of Us by Ava Delaria. Now this is not my favourite book. I rated it just 3 stars. I thought it was okay, but I know other people will like it more than me if you like the contemporary genre. It's got the theme of racism in it, it's got the theme of motherhood and, you know, growing a child and the difficulty of it, but it's also about Angie, who has been told her whole life that her father is dead. However, when she finds out that her uncle, who she also thought was dead, is actually alive, she goes on a road trip with her ex-boyfriend to go and find her uncle and see if maybe her father is alive too. However, the perspective is switching between Angie and also her mother when her mother was younger, so we get to see the events leading up to, you know, them falling in love. So you get to see the events leading up to Angie's mother falling in love with her father, and then we get to see whether he dies or not, and in the time of them being in a relationship, and then we also get to see through Angie's eyes as she's uncovering clues to kind of track her uncle. Marilyn, who is Angie's mother, when we get her perspective, Marilyn is really into photography. However, she doesn't have a camera, so instead she tries to frame shots without actually taking them with her camera, which is just so interesting when you don't have the equipment to be able to pursue your passion because of money, because of circumstance, but she's still trying to practice, she's still trying to do the best with what she has, and that again was just so inspiring because you don't have to have the equipment to be able to follow your passion, to be able to improve. She's still doing it without the equipment. Okay, we're down to the last two. So for one of them is Riven by Rowan Parrish. Riven is a new adult rock star romance, and Theo falls in love with Caleb, I believe, and the ex-rock star got into a bad scene in the rock community. He got into drinking, he got into drugs, and he's come out of rehab and he's come out of the fame and he's living a small life as a farmer. However, Theo is a really up and rising rock star. He's very, very famous, very popular, but he falls for this ex-rock star who's trying to stay out of the fame, and that's not going to work when he is so famous. So a lot of the main theme here is how the fame is getting to them, but at the same time, throughout it all, Theo doesn't like the fame either. Theo doesn't like being famous, but he has such a passion for writing and making music and for sharing that music with everyone else, but the fame just comes along with it. So it's interesting to see about a passion and a craft where it comes with negatives. So even though you still love it with all your heart, it just has negatives to it that are graining on you and that are draining your energy. So it's just interesting to see him kind of deal with that back and forth and how he handles it at the end of the novel. Hope this video isn't too long. And the last one I'm going to talk about is Heartland by Kimberly Stewart, which I recently read and I thought it was well enough. Again, I only rated it 3 stars, but it's just a nice, fun, contemporary romance which is not explicit at all, and it's about this small town girl who has big town girl dreams. She goes to New York to jumpstart her fashion career, doesn't work out, she ends up at home, she makes a dress, sells it on Etsy, and it sells for a lot of money, which means that she has enough funding to start her own fashion industry, her own fashion company. However, that means she has to leave her small town again, which also means leaving behind her ex-boyfriend who she's starting to fall in love with again. Gracie was just so into fashion. Like, she's someone who just loves clothes so much. I didn't know much about the fashion industry. It was great to learn more about it through that. And I also loved how she could take this, you know, ugly looking dress and she could rip a seam here and add something here and just, you know, jazz the whole thing up until it looked something so good that somebody else wanted to buy it. And I just really loved reading about how she just fell in love with her work and was just one track minded and focused when she was doing what she loved, and also her ambition and wanting to make a career out of it, because I do want to make a career out of my hobby as well. It'd be my dream job, so it's great to see that in a book. I know I've thrown a lot of reading recommendations out at you, but if you've read any of these, or if you know a character that's also really passionate about their craft, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear about it. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. Check out my store, you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!